Well, Casey here with CL Creative, where I'm teaching you web design and Webflow one video at a time. And today we are going to talk about how to use GSAP, Green Sock Animation Platform, to create an accordion inside of Webflow. So let's jump into the computer, check things out. All right, well, here we are inside of the computer. Let me just show you what we're going to be building today. This is going to be this accordion. And so wherever you click on this accordion, it's going to open and close. And instead of using Webflow interactions, what we're actually going to use is GSAP, so Green Sock Animation Platform, which is a super, powerful platform. And so one of the things that there's a number of different things you can do, but this is just something that's easy, and we can begin to see the power of this particular platform. So let me show you my HTML, CSS, and then we're going to jump into the code. The first thing that you're going to see over here is I'm going to have a section which is entitled FAQ, Home FAQ. I pulled this from the home page. And then you have your standard client first, set up here. But one of the things that we need to look at is our FAQ component. And if you notice I have my FAQ component set up as a grid, you don't need to have this set up as a grid. You could just simply set this up as a div. But I have it set up this way in case I want to make, or maybe you want to make, a two-column FAQ component. And so we could certainly, easily do that and make this two columns. If you're going to make it two columns, then you need to have a FAQ wrapper inside of the grid. And so if we take this grid and we just add another column to that, one of the things that we need to make sure that we do when we do that is we need to have a FAQ wrapper, and this FAQ wrapper is just located inside, or it's housing all of the actual FAQs. And this is what we're going to be animating and targeting, is this FAQ question wrap. So you need this right here inside of your grid in order to make this work, or the way that it animates is going to start looking kind of wonky. Now, we're not really going to get into that, but I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. And so then inside of this is actually our FAQ. And so I'll open this up so you can see how all of this stuff has been made. But we essentially have a question bar. We've got our H3 inside of that. We have our circle with our icon inside. We have our content with the paragraph and the FAQ divider. Now this content right here is going to have overflow hidden set on it, and this is what we're actually going to be animating so that it's going to move up and down along with this FAQ plus icon. We're going to animate that as well. Now, one of the things that you need to do is you need to make sure that you install this, and the way that we do that inside of Webflow is to use the CDN. And so you can go here to gsap.com, go to Tools, Installation, and then when you get there, you're going to encounter this screen. It's actually going to be on this particular tab for the NPM, but we're going to click on CDN because this is what we need in order to be able to place this inside of our Webflow project. And we don't need any of these other features, any of these other plugins. So we're not going to grab any of those, but just know that if you needed scroll trigger, you can just begin, doing all this, and then you just grab all of these at once and stick them inside of your project. But we don't need any of those, so we're not going to be doing that today. We're just going to simply grab this one right here at the very top. You're going to go to Webflow project. Over here to the head section, you can stick it inside of the head, or you can stick it inside of the body here, whichever one. Now you're going to notice I have another script here. This is just connecting me through a local host to Visual Studio Code. I have another video, and I'll try to put a link up here or there, wherever it might be, in order for you to go and watch how to get that set up. But you could certainly code all of this inside of your Webflow project, no problem at all. You can just do it right here in the body section. Make sure to include it inside of these script tags, open and closing script tags, and then you can code your JavaScript right inside of there. To me, it's a little bit cumbersome, so I'm not going to do it that way. All right. So here's what we're going to be working with, and one of the things that Visual Studio Code, in setting it up this way, allows you to work on the live site without having to publish and republish every single time that you need to make a change or check your code. All right, so one of the things that we need to do is we actually need, and if you notice here, what is the repeating elements inside of my fact wrapper? The repeating elements is this fact question wrap. It repeats over and over again, and it's indeed the individual blocks that make up our accordion or our fact section when inside of our component. And so what we need to do is we need to target these, and then GSAP has a very handy utility that allows us to then take these and turn this into an array. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to do const, and we're going to call these our fact toggle equals gsap.utils.toArray. And what we're going to be targeting is we're going to target that particular class of fact underscore question wrap. And so let me make sure I spell that right. All right, so this is what we're actually going to be targeting. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the for each method. And so we're going to take this array that we just created, toggle.forEach. Okay, and they added that in. I don't want to add that in right now. All right, and so we're gonna be targeting, and we can name this whatever we want, but I'm simply going to name this FAQ, just so it is easy for us to actually work with. All right, and so what we're actually going to do here is we need to make a few selections as we begin our for each method. And so we're going to do const, and what we need to select is the part that we're going to be animating. And so here you see on the screen, this is the part right here, this FAQ content that we're going to animate up and down. So it's going to hide and it's going to show for us. And so what we need to do is we need to target this with our query selector, and we want to make sure that we target that particular class. So we have our fact content, and we're going to be targeting our FAQ, which we're getting here as it's looping through this loop for us. All right, and then we're also going to target the icon, because that's the other thing that we are going to be animating. So FAQ icon, again, query selector, and this is called inside of my project plus icon. All right, so we have targeted both of these. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to make a timeline, because we're going to utilize GSAP's timeline capabilities. And so we're simply going to call this TL for timeline, and then we are going to target this timeline. And then at the beginning of our timeline, within the timeline, we have the ability to put in different options. And so we're going to pass in two different options. The first option is going to be pause true, so that the timeline is not automatically running when the page loads. We certainly don't want that to happen. We want it to load on click, or we want our animation to happen on click. And so we want to make sure that we pass in pause true. And then we also want to pass in reversed true. Now you might think that this means that whenever we come to the page, the actual accordions are all going to be open, but that's not how it works. There's a difference between what is actually happening in the DOM, which is our on our page, for lack of a better way to say that, and then what is actually happening inside of the animation. And so those are two things that we have to keep in mind. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a from to, and so this is important. For one, we want our accordion to be open like it is right here on the screen that you can see, so that we can actually work with that on a regular basis. And because we're going to be animating from a height of 0 to a height of auto within or with GSAP, it's much easier for GSAP to animate using from to from 0 to auto. And the reason that we're going to be using auto for our height is simply because we don't know how large, this content inside here is going to get. So you can notice that here and here and here, these are all different size pieces of content, and here as well and here as well. And so what we want to do is we want that box to be automatically sized. And so we need to be able to set it that way. And so in order for that to take place, then what we actually need to do is we need to set it from height. And so, well, first what are we going to set? We're going to set our FAQ content. So we have our FAQ content from up here. This is what we're going to be targeting for our from to. And then inside of our from to, we're going to pass in height of 0, okay? And then we're going to go to, as I just mentioned, a height of auto. And we need to make sure that we wrap these inside of quotes and make that a string. Okay, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do to, and then this time we're going to target our FAQ icon. And what we're going to take place here is we're just going to rotate this negative 45 degrees. And what we want to make sure is that this is occurring at the same time as our from to animation. And the way we do that is simply by you're going to put a comma, and then you're going to put in quotes marks the less than sign. There are other different signs that we could add in here, but for our purposes, this is what we're going to be utilizing at this point. Okay, and then we can close all of this. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we've got our timeline set up. We have our array. We've got our for each going. We've targeted these two things that we're actually going to be animating. We've set up our timeline. We've determined what it is that we want to have animate. Now we need to determine how we're going to have this animation actually start and play. And we need to do this with the event listener. And so we need to add an event listener. And the event listener that we're actually going to add is a click event listener. And then when that event clicks, these are the things that we're going to have take place. We're going to have it check, and we're going to use a ternary to do this, but we're going to check, it has this, and let me just write this out real quick, and then I'll tell you what, this is actually saying here. Whoops. All right, so what this is doing is anytime that we click, so if I come over here, anytime I click, what is happening is our JavaScript is checking and saying, is reversed true? If reverse is true, then we're going to play our timeline. So we're going to play through this sequence right here. If that's not true, okay, then we are going to play it in reverse. And so if you remember, up here inside of our timeline, we set reverse to true. So our timeline is going to start with reverse being true, which means right now, whenever I click, it's going to play it. And when it plays it, it's going to animate from a height of 0 to a height of auto, which is going to open that FAQ content box up, as well as it's going to rotate our icon by 45 degrees. And when I click again, since reverse is not true, what's actually going to happen is it's going to reverse it for us. And so it's just going to go back through this timeline for us. Again, our icon is going to rotate back to 0, and then our height is going to go back to 0 as well. And so that's a really easy way for us to do that. And really that's all that we need to do. So we can come over here to our page here, we can reload, and let's see if this actually works. And so we click, and indeed it opens. We click again, and it closes. Now, I'm going to take this a step further for you, and let's say you want to have one of these open whenever you scroll into view, right? You want one of these to actually be open. How can we do that? Well, this is something that's really easy to do. All we need to do in our particular case to our fact question wrap here. Okay, so we want this first one right here to be open. We're just going to add a class of open. Then we're going to come, down here, and we're going to check, and we're going to see, is that class open or not? And so we'll write an if statement. Fact.classList, right, dot contains open. Okay? If it is open, then what we're going to do, or if it does have that class, what we're going to do is we're just going to play it. And so what that means is that the timeline is going to play for the one that has open on it. And so let's check and see if our project has finished publishing. Yes, indeed it has. See, it takes a while. This is why you need to watch my other video where you can get this set up outside of here and be able to use Visual Studio Code. So there you go. You see that it actually played. So let me just do that one more time. Right, it has the open class, and then it plays. Now, usually your FAQ is going to be further down the screen. And so if I just do this here, now that's playing down there. You're not going to see that happening. And then when you scroll into view, this is indeed open. And then we can close it and open it, we can close it, and we can open it. And so that's an easy way just to take this to the next level. One of the things that's pretty much difficult for us to do with Webflow interactions is simply just to have one of these open. But with GSAP, that's all we need to do. Just write this one line of code. Well, I guess technically 2 lines of code here, where we're going to check to see if there's an open class on. And so one of the most powerful thing, I think, is that if you were to create this in Webflow interactions, one of the things you have to do is you have to create the interaction. Then you have to click on this FAQ question wrap. You have to go over to the interactions panel. You got to click the plus button. You've got to click mouse click on first click, start an animation. Then you have to select that particular animation after you've already built that. Now, if you want this next one right here to open on click, well, you have to go to fact question wrap, element trigger, click, first click, start an animation, boom. It takes a long time to do that, especially if you have a bunch of these. And now imagine having a lot of these all over your site on every single page of your site. You've got to go through and just click to make that animation happen. The advantage with this is now I can take this code, I can come over here, I can paste it into the body, or what I've actually done on my site, I'll have to go to another page to show you this, but what I've actually done on my site is I've created a global styles embed or a global styles component, and this goes on every single page of my website. I can open this up. I have GSAP's animation in here. I can open up that code. And then you see I have a number of different ones. We'll go over these in future lessons, but here it is right here. I just paste this in. And then on every single page where I have my accordion and I place this global styles component, that animation is going to work no problem at all. And so if we go here, I've got this on my home page. It's working. On some of my other pages here, it's here. There's another one. This one's working. And it's all being driven by this code inside of that global styles component where I've placed in my GSAP animation. So that is so much faster. And it's also more performant to do it that way as well. All right. Well, hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, consider giving me a thumbs up. And if you want more content like this, would you subscribe to the channel? I'm going to be producing videos on a weekly basis. I'm probably going to be producing some more videos utilizing GSAP Just some simple ways in which we can utilize that platform inside of Webflow in order to take our animations to the next level, as well as just to do simple, easy things like we had here with our accordion, just to make our life much easier as developers who are working inside of Webflow. Hope to see you on the next video.